Okay, so I've got a wet bulb temperature of 77 Fahrenheit. I've got dry bulb 86. That gives me a relative humidity of 67%. We have got a land surface temperature of 114 Fahrenheit and a heat index of 95. That puts us in the zone of extreme caution for outdoor activity. But what if I were to go over there in the shade? Would these values change? By how much? And why would they change? These are some of the questions that high school students in Prince George's County, Maryland are asking in their environmental science class this year. With support from the NOAA Bay-Watershed Education and Training Program, some 2,000 high school students are undertaking a countywide assessment of the control that trees exert on the movement of energy and water through the near-surface ecosystems in their communities. The project is called A Watershed of Trees and is part of a long-term collaboration between educators in Prince George's County Public Schools in Maryland and the Paleontological Research Institution in Ithaca, New York. 2 years ago, PRI and PGCPS curriculum writers redesigned the district's environmental science course offered at all 28 high schools in the district to include student-directed inquiry into the environmental and health impacts of shaded and non-shaded areas within communities. We're part of a decades-long effort by the states that comprise the Chesapeake Bay watershed to provide a meaningful watershed education experience, or MIWE, to every student in the watershed before graduation from high school. NOAA-funded projects now include 4 MIWE elements: issue definition, outdoor field experience, synthesis and conclusions, and a culminating action project. For our project, the MIWE is written into the scope and sequence of the curriculum. It's not an add-on that teachers have to somehow find time or space for. To get everyone off to a good start, the design team crafted a driving question that sets a scaffold for learning. Within a human-dominated watershed, what is the impact of trees on water movement, energy movement, the creation of microclimates, and how do these processes influence the quality of life for human communities within the watershed? We focus on trees because they're ubiquitous, they're really powerful, they're a rich curricular element, and they're an essential climate solution. They're also part of the Prince George's County Climate Action Plan. To address the driving question, all students complete a common set of measurements across the seasons of the school year. Students select 2 sites in their schoolyard, one open and sunny, the other shaded. At each site, students make a series of temperature measurements. They use a sling psychrometer to measure air temperature and then calculate relative humidity, dew point, and heat index. They measure the land surface temperature with an infrared thermometer, and they measure temperature of the soil at 2 depths using soil thermometers. Students record their measurements in the field and then upload their observations to a district-wide database curated by PRI. All students and teachers have access to all the data so that they can work both with their own observations and with those of their peers across the region. Students then analyze their data using their own observations, or they can incorporate the data from other schools as they consider their results in light of the driving question. Of course, the key players here are the Prince George's County teachers, and a robust teacher professional development program is our first priority in ensuring that the students conduct successful fieldwork. And this process is iterative. We take what we learn each year and use that to improve every element of the project. So as we move forward through the 3 years of the project, we have several objectives. First, to make sure that the teachers are comfortable and confident using the field equipment and helping the students achieve that same comfort and confidence. We want to collect good data that can be used both by the students in class and by the larger community. And of course, we need to help the students undertake robust data analysis so that they grasp the significance of their observations and the importance of their work in their communities in the face of changing global climate. At the start of year 1, we focused teacher training on using the handheld equipment in the field, on choosing field sites, on what typical data sets might look like, and becoming familiar with the data portal for data upload. The design team monitored the project data portal to gauge the level of participation in the first year, to locate any problem spots, and to think about what the students were seeing and how they might be prompted to use it. At the end of the school year, we began our own data analysis that we then turned around to use in the teacher professional development workshops at the start of the next school year. So what did the students observe? Over the course of the year, our student researchers made over 3,500 individual measurements. All the student groups saw in their own data the control of trees on air and surface temperatures. Some groups accessed the countywide data and began asking their own questions. For example, students at the Academy of Health Sciences tried to determine if trees affect air or surface temperatures more, and they used the data from other schools to support conclusions drawn from their own observations. They also noticed that there are seasonal changes in dew point. And here, on the right-hand side of the screen, is one of the most interesting questions they asked. Are there temperature differences in different locations within the county? The 12 data points that they used here don't really answer that question, but I'll come back to that in just a minute. First, I'll point out that we were very fortunate earlier this year because the GSA Northeast-Southeast sectional meeting was held in March just across the river from Prince George's County in Reston, Virginia. We were able to send the 4 students whose work I just shared with you to that meeting, where they didn't just attend, they presented their work to their professional peers. Now that was in March, and by the end of the school year, students were asking new questions, such as, who in the community has access to these trees that we know control ambient temperature? And some student groups turned their infrared thermometers on the school parking lot, where they were astonished by the elevated temperature of pavement above a natural sunny surface. So as we move into the current school year, we're following up on those student questions and adding spatial data to our teacher professional development. And the examples that we're using in workshops this year are all based on data collected by the students in combination with spatial demographic data. In particular, we're using data made available by American Forest's Tree Equity Project. A tree equity score is computed for each census block in the country using canopy cover and an assemblage of demographic data layers. So over the summer, we returned to the students' question about temperature differences measured at different schools. I chose 3 schools who went out at the end of the school year in May: Eleanor Roosevelt High School here in orange, Central High School in red, and the Academy of Health Sciences in green. These are their observations of land surface temperature. Sunny sites are filled symbols, shady sites are open symbols, air temperature are the asterisks. The data are color-coded by school. There appears to be an increase in the temperature of the sunny sites, either as a function of space or of time, or maybe both. Warming with time makes sense in May, but can we control for an overall seasonal increase? I did that by getting the National Weather Service temperature data from nearby Baltimore-Washington International Airport. These are the daily highs and lows for the month of May. You can see that the air temperature didn't really warm up during the 3 weeks in May when the students were in the field. So maybe these measurements are specific to the school and not to the change of season. I averaged the data for each school, and you can see those averages here. In order to find out more about the neighborhoods in which the schools are located, I used demographic data layers from the Tree Equity Project. This map shows the fraction of people in poverty in the census tracts where each school is located. So I plotted the students' surface temperature data against poverty fraction. I found this result astonishing, and the first teacher group we shared this with was equally animated. The environmental justice implications are clear. So we know that the students are asking the right questions, and we know that they have good data that answers their questions. Our job is to give the students the support they need to understand those relationships, to build that understanding themselves, and to recognize that they're not just doing schoolwork. Their observations are important. They're important for interpreting the basic behavior of the natural world, and they're important for the health of the communities that they live in as we confront the climate crisis.